Cedric, let's start with your football upbringing, your development. What was that like in France at the time of your sort of becoming of a player? What's that like in France compared to what it was like in England at the time?
Well, in France, well, I'm talking obviously about Bordeaux. This is where I done all my trades from the academy up to the first team. Basically, from right to the youth to the first team, I think that the clubs have the same philosophy. Every team plays exactly the same ways. We used to have a coach called Pierrot Labat, and he used to do a lot of specific technique, just basic, how to touch the ball, first touch, which obviously is part of the game now. It's very important to have a good first touch to be able to read the game. We've done a lot ball work with him, how to manipulate balls, how to check your shoulder, even like a simple example against the wall. We used to have sort of a platform or trampoline, would just hit the ball and the ball was coming back to you, how we can turn. And then obviously you can add a bit more into position games, and it's just on a daily basis we're doing that every day. It was part of the warm-up, manipulate the ball, how to turn with the ball, first touch, even with the chest, front foot, sideways, everything was based with the ball.
It's quite interesting because it feels like here now it's very much that way. It's very much technique. I know my development was very much with the ball, but probably back in your time when you were growing up, English football probably would have been a bit more about getting players stronger and fitter. And it's interesting to hear the French philosophy was still very much, it's all about the ball at your feet and how you use the ball as opposed to how strong you are. Why do you think the two countries were so different in terms of their footballing outlook at that time?
To be fair, I think the English games is developing and is catching up every single other nations, football nations now. I don't know why England was so behind everybody. I think they probably stay and stuck with their own culture about long balls and be fitter than anybody else. But I think at some stage later on you get caught and you don't progress as a nation as well. I think England have probably realised that very quickly. With Southgate, and you can see the way England play, and I think you can see a lot of clubs playing as well. But I think the key for me is to have so many foreign managers who come to the Premier League or in English football have sort of take a bit of their culture as well. We can talk about Pep Guardiola, and I think a lot of people have tried to copy his philosophy, and I will not say England have copied his philosophy, but in some part of the England game is you could see a little bit of trade of Manchester City, and then as help. But coming back to Bordeaux for us was every single player, individual players used to have a program. As I said, the defender never had the same program that the midfield, and the midfield have never the same program as the striker because the run is a different runs. I think when I moved to Norwich, it was a bit a different culture, I believe. I was more a flair baller player than just a runner, and it's probably why I will probably enjoy a lot more the modern football now than it was probably 10 years ago.
That's interesting for you to say that you have individual programs as a young player, because that's probably something that feels quite new over here for a lot of the players. Having sort of individual regimes and position regimes is quite new. Why do you think it has taken the English game so long to catch up? Do you think it is just because of the mentality and the pride of being this fit, strong nation and fit, strong footballers that have to play long balls? Or do you think it's more a case of just a lack of influence from outside sources? So later on when we saw Arsene Wenger come to the Premier League and he was so influential in shaping it, do you think it was a case that it was just a bit too English and it was a bit too inward looking?
I think English wanted to stay English, and I didn't thought that they wanted to learn from other nations. The French was learning from the Portuguese was learning from the Spanish, and we can go on. But I believe that the English Football Association never really wanted to learn a lot more. As you just mentioned, the culture was English, long ball, and pick up second ball and defend well and be organised and run quickly than anybody else. But as I said earlier, you get caught at some stage later on in football, and we see that England have moved on so far and so quick in recent years. And as I said, obviously everyone trying to copy the Spanish football, the short pass and the movement, the rotations, and we can see a little bit of Norwich, a little bit some aspect of the way Norwich play. But yeah, I believe the English football never developed because I think it was two old-fashioned managers who never really wanted to develop themselves. And you can see a lot of Premier League managers these days who actually go abroad now and learn a lot more. We're talking about Alloway. Ian Alloway, he's just been to Spain and trying to study the Spanish football, and Steve McLaren went to Holland, and you got a lot more English football who are prepared to develop their mind and how they see the game outside England.
For you as a player, obviously coming up in Bordeaux, what was your education like from 15 to 20, for example? Was it a case of doing the same things, or was it actually year by year there was a different set plan for you?
No, for us, from 15 to 20, it was the same program. It was the same routine every day. Just repetitions of how to manipulate the ball, and then suddenly you do that in the game without thinking about doing that. When the game is tight, you do automatically. You don't think about, don't give me the ball because I'm under pressure. It was just you doing that as normal.
Was it with Bordeaux about creating a culture where players could be expressive and players could be themselves on the ball and express themselves within a team? Whereas perhaps for a young English player in that environment, it would have been, you've got to be organised, you've got to be strong, you've got to be fit, you've got to tackle, you've got to head well. So for you, was there a lot more freedom for you coming through a French academy than there would have been in an English academy, do you think?
Yeah, I would think so. But again, if I come back to Bordeaux, I can tell you from the keeper to the striker, defenders, they were all comfortable with the ball. Everyone technically was comfortable on the ball. And you can see that now. Goalkeepers is a massive influence in the game now. They need to be able to play. Just as an example, Pep Guardiola didn't want to keep Hart because he believed he was not good enough with his feet. And he went to bought a different goalkeeper. It's part of the game, the way Guardiola built his team is we play from the back, and playing from the back is not playing from your defenders, it's actually playing from your goalkeepers. So your goalkeeper actually is part of, the build-up. It's as I said, England have come from a very far down the line.
You must look at it now as someone who's come from that environment when you growing up into English football, which, as you say, was so different, and see some things now that you've sort of had back then. That must be sort of the case if you're talking about sort of individual programmes, and that feels, as I said earlier, quite new to English football. For you to see that, is that something that you look at and sort of think, well, that's something that should have been done 20, 30 years ago?
Well, to be fair, when I looked Norwich, the way they've been playing since Daniel Farke have come on to Norwich City, that is what Bordeaux and probably other clubs have been doing for many years, and you feel like is you play catch up. Then last year everyone was a bit skeptical about the way Daniel Farke wanted to play his game and his philosophy and everything, but we see actually this year how you want to set up, and it's been an absolutely outstanding. They've probably been the best team in the league by miles.
Does that come from his German roots then, the fact that he has grown up in that German education system for coaches and for players that is all about technique and is all about playing the ball out from the back, do you think?
Massively. I think, if I'm right, I think Daniel Farke is the only foreign manager been appointed at Norwich City.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So all the others, the previous managers, they've been Scottish or British, we would call, and we come back again to that philosophy of they maybe didn't want to learn, but they were old-fashioned. Daniel Farke come into Norwich with a completely different sort of drive and philosophy, and reflecting on the players, and and is nice to see. But me as a foreign person, I've seen that many years ago, and this is why I said I would have loved to be part of his setup, the way he plays, because is how I want or myself used to play.
And you come through at Bordeaux, you get into the first team. What was that like for you as a young player? Was it a case of, because you had this structure where from 15 to 20 you were doing the same thing, that when you got into the first team that was an easier jump to make?
Yeah, exactly. So when you played the reserve play exactly the same that the first team, when you actually get called to do even a training session or a practice session with the first team, you know, out of your comfort zones, you do automatically. So, you know, it's like, you know, they don't have to buy players for the sake of buying players. They actually buy a player for the suitable system that the manager is playing. And again, as I said, is a daily routine that you practice every single day in your own club. And when you get moving to categories, you know, out of your depth, and it's easy to be done. It's easy to fit a system.
And then going into that Bordeaux first team, what was that like for you as a young player? Was it a dressing room that welcomed you? Was it a club that supported you in terms of how you wanted to play? Was that an environment whereby you felt you could develop within that first team environment?
Well, Bordeaux at the time was not very a club which to give a lot of chances to players from the academy. I would not say you have to be special to be calling in the first team, but it was very hard for young players or academy players to get a pro contract. You know, I remember when I played for the first team, I was not even under contract. I was still an apprentice at the club. But again, we had a lot of good players in a changing room. You know, first team players, top players, which is the same in any clubs. If a senior pro players see something into a young players, he will take him under his wing and obviously give him the confidence to express himself when he's training or when he's friendlies, or even when he's called to play a league games, and is the same everywhere. I was lucky enough to have a very good senior players around me who took me under their wings and let me to express myself. The changing room was very good at Bordeaux. We were not doing so well in the league, but we're very good in UEFA Cup campaign.
Mentally, as a young player, that must have been quite nice then, to have those experienced pros almost guide you through games. That must have, for you, felt a bit more secure than had you been in a dressing room that perhaps couldn't carry young players and wasn't so supportive. So is that an environment that you felt, because of those senior pros, helped develop you as a footballer?
Yeah, as I said, any senior players in any clubs, any squad is they got a massive sort of part of confidence to give to the young players who actually come and train. As I said, I was very lucky to be part of a very good squad at the time, who see something about me, the first team as well, because what happened is the first team coach at Bordeaux was my manager when I was playing in reserve, so he knew anything and everything about me, how to get the best at me, how I need to work on. So for me it was an easy sort of like step to do it. Obviously the hardest step to do is to actually walk in a changing room when you're still 17 and you still like learning your trade, where you don't want to step on anybody else's toes, or you don't have to have an ego or being too arrogant, but I let my football talk, and he bring me where I wanted to bring in terms of my goals.
And you've touched upon it there earlier on about the UEFA Cup run. That's something that obviously you went on to play in the final with Zidane quite famously. How big a moment was that in your career?
Well, it's probably the biggest moment in my career, because I didn't expect him to play. But previously to the final, we obviously played AC Milan in a quarter-final, and again, it's because I had a good attitude and I trained very well, and I was listening and doing everything right what was told to do. The manager always said, I think we're playing the way AC Milan, San Siro. He said, we want you to come with us in a squad. Obviously, you won't be part of the squad, you'll be sitting on the stand for the game. And I was just happy to be there anyway. but lucky for me and unlucky for my teammates, we trained the night before, and unfortunately he broke his leg in the crossing drills we were doing. So from being the player in a stand and then sitting on the bench, it was like, it's almost like it was a destiny for me. And then obviously I carry on, and I was lucky enough. I say lucky enough, but you bring your own luck. So I work hard enough to be part in the final. Away, I only played 10 minutes, came on against Bayern Munich, and the second leg at home at Bordeaux, I play over, I think it was over an hour, because Lizarazu got injured, and I remember the manager looked at the bench and he said, Cedric, get warm, and I didn't even have time to get warm because it had to get on so quick. And I was actually not even, it's not I was unprepared, but at that stage you don't actually think about nothing. You just your manager's giving you some what you need to do, and you get on and you try your best, and lucky enough I done quite well.
You've mentioned a few times the fact you worked hard, the fact you listened, the fact your attitude was good. You obviously now work quite prominently in youth development, youth coaching. For you as a player and also as a coach, how much do you value hard work? Because you can have all the talent in the world, can't you? But if you don't work hard enough, and it sounds like in your case, it was a lot of hard work and obviously a lot of talent as well, and you combine the two to get where you were.
For me, is even behind that. For me, is the attitude. The attitude control everything. So when I look for players or when I train players, I don't actually just only look his technical ability or how hard he work. Is the attitude. When I talk about attitude, is coming with a smile, is being on time, is listen, is doing a lot more that he's supposed to do, and talk to his teammate in the knowledge of the game, and even the after training, if you want to stay and do a lot more, coming to see your manager and ask questions. That's what I'm looking for. I'm a big believer that you can't coach bad attitude, because for me, if you talk in terms of football world, you can't coach bad attitude, and if you can't coach bad attitude on the football field, you can't what's the word? You can't employ a person if the person got bad attitude. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Of course. Yeah. Is that something that you've taken from your career, the fact that you worked so hard and your attitude was great, and that's why you got yourself in the position you did? Because you must have seen a lot of talented players at Bordeaux. Is it a case that there were some players perhaps more talented than you who perhaps didn't have your work rate and so didn't get the opportunities that you got?
I don't want to be very arrogant, but technically I was always
I
was actually better than anybody else everywhere I've been. So it's not me having a big head or whatever, but I don't like to talk about myself too much about my playing career, because my playing career is gone. But at my time I always technically was very good. It's funny you say that, because just recently I had some couple Norwich City fans who said to me, the way you play yourself, we can see Emi Buendia. He said, you two are very similar the way you played. And I said, really? He said, yeah. So for me is very nice to hear. But yeah, I was technically very good. I had a good attitude. I was always there on time. I was doing a lot more, even different positions. So I was more a central player, but I used to go on the ring, some trainings. After training, I was doing a lot more in terms of crossing the ball on the move, not just a dead ball. I was doing left and right. You work your both foot. I was doing a lot more than what a central midfielder was doing, because sometimes you can play central, sometimes you can play on the right, sometimes you can play on the left. And in modern football, you have to play with both foot.
And you just finally on Bordeaux, obviously we can't not mention Zidane, who you played with. When you played with him, did you perhaps expect him to go on and have the career he was? Because he's obviously a historic footballer, a legendary footballer, someone you've obviously played with, which must be a big accolade in itself to say that you did. So did you see that in him at Bordeaux?
Well, obviously we talk about the right attitude, and Zidane used to have always the right attitude. He used to be very, very shy, very timid, don't really talk too much, but obviously do his talking on the football field. You could see that he was going to go for an unbelievable career. obviously you don't really know what go behind door, because obviously he had a different agent, sorry, but you knew that it was a lot of big clubs was after him, and it was a destiny for him to become who he is, and even better to be as a manager, but if you look the way he was at Bordeaux and the way he was at Juventus, he didn't develop his skills as a player. He developed a winning mentality. And obviously at Juventus, they work so much on fitness and tactical aspect of the game. And that's why he have developed after Bordeaux. He's developed a winning mentality, a tactician in terms of how to play tactically, develop physically. He was a lot bigger. He developed his muscles. Just to give you an anecdote, when he signed for Juventus, his first pre-season, he was sick every single session because he was pushing himself right to the limit, even beyond that. But as I said, he's helped him to have the career he had. Even after Juventus went to Real Madrid, and he was an unbelievable player. He was doing things with his feet that you can't even do with your hand. His flexibility of his ankles was incredible. But again, he was doing things on the football field not to amuse the stand. He was doing things on the field at that what was needed at that moment for him to get out of being under pressure. There is so many players in this modern football do a step over to make 50,000 people to just clap. That's the difference between them players and Zidane.
And to play with someone like him, you said he was sick after every session. As a young player at that time, that must have been fantastic for you in terms of, right, this is the level that I need to work to if I want to get to that level. Every
player need to have a not just a level but a standard. They have to have their own individual standard to be where they want, and even probably beyond that. And when you see a player like Zidane, he's showing you what you can achieve and believe in yourself, that you can do anything you want if you are prepared to do the hard work. And again, have the right attitude.
So whenabouts did the Norwich interest first stem up for you? Because obviously it was a loan move first, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. When did that sort of come up, and how did it come up? Because at that time it was quite rare for a foreign player to go to England.
Yeah, to be fair, how it happened very quickly, because I was obviously part of the first team at Bordeaux, but the manager changed, and I was part of his plan, but I was not very playing, and I was playing in the reserve and playing in the first team for half an hour, traveling. But as a player, you want to test yourself. You want to go to the next step. And my agent called me at the time. He said, "Look, are you prepared to go abroad?" And I said, "Why not?" But at the start, Norwich City was no interest. I didn't have any contact with Norwich City. We had a contact with Southampton. And I went over there on trial for a week, with obviously due to play a friendly midweek. But unfortunately, the French Federation didn't send me the letter for me to play the game. So what they said, well, come back in Bordeaux, we will come to watch you. And they came to watch me. But when I was on my week on trial at Southampton, we were two players, similar players. You had Marian Pahar, if you remember, the Latvian player, Marian Pahar, and obviously they signed him, they signed me. But again, it's destiny that I was not due to sign for Southampton, and I was due to sign for Norwich City. So when I come back to Bordeaux, my agent said, "Oh, I've got Norwich City, looking for a type of a player the way you are. Are you interested to go on trial?" And I say, "Yeah." So I was due again to go on a week trial, and after the second day, Bruce Rioch at the time called me in his office, and he said, "We would like to sign you for the rest of the season." And this happened. And obviously I took the opportunity, and again is I was probably the first type of player that the Norwich City fan have never seen, that flair, that had to use the ball, to use your brain, had to see the game quickly and not just run with the ball a straight line. I was doing different things, again, because I was, what I've learned when I was at Bordeaux, how to manipulate the ball, how to read the game quickly. And I remember I had the coach in France, he said, any players who are not quick in terms of speed and pace. They need to be quick in terms of their mind. So they mean that you have to read the game quicker than anybody else, almost like a snooker player. And I always base my game like that. I always base my game as a snooker player, how to play. It's not just a pass. You know, what can I do behind if I make that pass? What movement was it going to create behind? And this is always what I'm trying to do. And I think obviously Norwich fans take a very high interest about me, and I become a Norwich City favourite for the short time I was at Norwich City. But I had a lovely time at the club, and obviously I'm still here.
Yeah, it must have been quite rare, I suppose, for supporters at that time to see a player from France or a player from abroad generally come in and impact a squad that, as we say at the time, was in a period where English football was all about being fit and strong, and yet you come in with a completely set of tools and a completely different set of looking at the game. For you, was it a culture shock as well coming to England?
Yeah, it was massive because I was a very young boy. Everything was different. Obviously, the language was hard because I didn't speak English, but again because I would say a good player. The senior players in the changing room, Fleming, Ian Roberts, Malky Mackay, Matt Jackson as well, took me under their wings, and it was easy for me to develop the language. Obviously, you start to make the first step and you learn quickly, and it was difficult, as we just mentioned about Zidane when he went to Juventus, how hard he found it. For me, when I moved from Bordeaux to Norwich on my first pre-season, was really hard. And I remember Duncan Forbes was part of the staff with Bruce Wilk and Brian Hamilton, and we went to have a pre-season at the UEA, and we had to run up hills, and I was at the back, and Duncan was shouting at me, keep it tight, and then if I was too tight, he said, not too tight, and then you have to go back down and run back up, and you have to sprint. And for me, it was a very hard culture to go into it, because at Bordeaux everything was done in a computer. Everyone have a different programs individually, and then you come to Norwich and everyone make the same run. And it took me quite a long time to get used to of that culture, called the English culture. But after all, was not a bad experience. You learn from experience, so that was good for me.
It's interesting because we said right at the start, when you were at Bordeaux in pre-season, you got the balls out and you were playing, and you compare that to when you come to England and suddenly you're running up steep hills. Did you find it difficult to go from a place where the balls were out every single day and it was all about technique to where actually it became more about physique and about fitness and about how you could defend and being sturdy and strong? That must have been difficult, particularly for someone like you who was a flair player. It
was difficult, but again, it's all about having the right attitude, and I knew that at a very early stage that we were not going to use the ball that much. We used to use the ball, but not the way we used to use the ball in France, the drills and everything else. So I tried to adapt myself to the culture, the drills we were doing, the philosophy behind the managers. You always have to come out of your comfort zones where you have learned for all them years and trying to learn something else. And that has always been my aim, and is my aim, my trait today. I always learn, when you come out of your comfort zones, you learn every day.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, a football pitch is always going to be the same. It's roughly the same size. It's got 4 corner flags, 2 goals in it.
Yeah.
But actually, the culture around a football club or a footballing country can be completely different. So for you to come from one to another, particularly given that you didn't speak the language, that must have been an incredibly tough experience for you. But it must have also been one that was quite rewarding in the sense that it toughened you up.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to go to a different culture. It's like when you are in France, you move from one French club to a different French club and go on loan. Me, I have to go across and be in a different country where the language is different, the food is different, the weather is different. Everything is different. Even to drive on the wrong side of the road was different. I remember taking my French car to the car park. Obviously, the where you pick up your ticket is on the right hand side. And obviously, French car, the wheels on the left hand side. So I could have to get out of my car to pick up the tickets. But is if you feel comfortable with someone, you have to go across that line and trying to learn and put yourself in that culture. And that's where you are learning. you are developing, but again, as you said, you're mentally getting stronger.
You must be able to relate to Norwich City now, because obviously there are a lot of players coming in from abroad. There were a lot of players last year who took a season to adapt to the culture, if you like, of English football. So that must be something that you can relate to, given your experience in what was probably a harsher culture then than it perhaps is now.
Well, I did say that last year when I was obviously a few times on the radio, that is sometimes the comment on Daniel Farke was a bit harsh. The comment on some of the players was a bit harsh, because me being a foreign player, it's difficult to move into a different country, to adapt yourself quickly, because the game now these days is based on points, it's based on winning. You don't have time to adapt yourself, and it's even harder for a manager. The language is different, and the Championship League is probably the hardest league in the world, because it's so demanding physically. You can play a Saturday at 3 o'clock, you can play a Tuesday evening, and then you can play again a Saturday at 12 o'clock. It's so much demanding. It is difficult, it's very hard, but as I said, you learn from what you done last year, you learn from your mistake, and I believe that Daniel Farke and all the foreign players who came last year are completely different players, massively, and they show where Norwich are in the league. But yeah, it is difficult. It is difficult because your world just changed.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Because it's not just on the pitch, it's off the pitch as well, because everything is so different for you as a player. The processes that you had in your country are completely different, as you said. The minor things like the car being on, or the driving point being on the wrong side for you. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think fans see a foreign player come in and perhaps not perform or not hit the ground running, and then sort of say, well, okay, that must be because they're not training hard enough, when actually it could be something completely outside of that.
Is different, but what I'm saying is that all the German players who have come to Norwich, one thing they are very lucky is to have a German manager. So obviously, if they don't understand, they can speak their own language in terms of the tactics and stuff like that. So they can speak to each other. For me, it was different, because I was the only French player in the squad. And at the time, I was in a long-term relation with my girlfriend at the time, and I have to move, and she decided not to move with me, and is part of life. But it's still the same, as you said. It's not just on the field. It's outside. It's at home. It's to find a house. It's to adapt yourself to the city. Is some of them came with their wife and their girlfriend. Some of them came on their own, and the girlfriend's still in Germany. Is hard. But you have to put priority right in your life sometimes. A lot of German players came from a very low tier of football in Germany, and probably believe that is massive luck for them to be playing in England, play for Norwich City, which is a big club. Is a very experience for them, very massively a good experience for them, and from there, if they do well, they will open doors. That if you play in Germany in a third tier, there's not many opportunities you get, because a lot of them was already playing for a Premier League, a Premier Bundesliga club with Dortmund, and they went down in terms of their football career. But they had an opportunity, and you look, all of them have grabbed them. Christoph Zimmermann is a very perfect example. Lettner is another perfect example, and you can say all the others' names, but they have grabbed the opportunity, and I think Daniel Farke have grabbed the opportunity as well. And if you look him, he's a completely different manager than he was last year when he was started. He's limited the mistake he's done last year and not done the same one this year.
It's different in a sense though for them, because obviously for the German continuing in that Norwich dressing room, there's obviously quite a few of them. When you arrived, it was just you.
It was just me.
Couldn't speak English.
No.
How difficult was it for you to get the instructions from your manager and from your teammates?
I had a translator.
Okay.
So I had a translator who was with me at training, was with me when I needed to do some shopping or go in a city or things like that. It was hard. As a fan, if you're a fan and you had to go to work abroad, you know, it's difficult. Do you know where I'm coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Is sometimes it's easy to judge some situation, and we all human, and we all judge, you know. But sometimes you actually think outside the box. You know, the players, they need to hit the ground quickly, but also they need to adapt themselves to the culture for them to flourish later on. And it's exactly what happened to Norwich this year with all the players and the managers.
How did you find it as a technical player coming to England and playing against these 6'3" giants who would try and kick you every week? That must have been quite difficult.
Well, we talk about, I mean, Buendia get kicked every single game. That was my game based as well. So you learn, and yeah, it's hard. But again, my game was based like that. So at some stage in the game, you know that the player will get a yellow card or even a red card, and then obviously that helped your team. But it was hard because we're talking quite a long time ago when I moved to Norwich, and some of the players, when it went for a tackle, and sometimes it was not just to play the ball; it is playing you and to hurt you, you know. So that was an eye-opening for me. But again, you do the talk with other things. I couldn't compete with a make a tackle or jumping in the air and want to win the ball in the air. I'm 5'8". You know what I'm saying? So I had to affect the game in a different aspect of the game, which was based on my technical ability, my movements, my way I was thinking to hurt oppositions. And I think Emi Buendia will do the same, and I think he will learn from his mistake on Saturday.
So when was it really that the first sort of mental health stuff started to kick in for you? Was that at Norwich, or was it prior to that point?
But to be honest, I had quite a lot of time to reflect now. I believe it was probably after I left Norwich, but you know, now I can easily say my depression and my anxiety probably starting at a very young age. Obviously, my mum being an alcoholic, and my dad obviously was not very a good dad towards me. Obviously, with you know, being very abusive mentally, you know. But when I actually got the call from Bordeaux to join the academy, it was almost like a golden ticket. Do you know what I'm saying? I knew, you know, I always wanted to be a footballer professional. That's it, you know. I'm going to be able to try to reach my goals and my dreams. And because you are in that bubble world, you start to get people who praise you and sort of like boost your confidence, and the word failure is never involved. And you know, obviously, as I said before, I was lucky that technically I was a good player. I was a good player, and I always been sort of like putting on the pedestal, we call.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's probably from when I was a very young age. As I said, I had both parents alcoholic. My dad was very aggressive, abusive towards me mentally and physically. So and it's just now recently I'm starting to develop that and trying to understand that actually I was not depressed when I actually left Norwich. I had the symptoms long time before, when I was 16, 17, when I left my house to go to Bordeaux Academy.
It seems from what you're saying there that football was almost an escape for you in what was quite a tough upbringing.
The football have been an escape because I always wanted to be a footballer, so that was my dream. So it was easy for me to actually leave.
Something to go towards.
Yeah, it was easy to actually leave my parents, but my parents divorced when I was a very young age anyway. It was easy for me to leave, to actually, you know, it's what I want to do, it's what I dream to do. So it was easy for me to do it, and I put all the strength of what happened with my parents, with my dad, and I put all that together to reach my goals, to be a football professional. So yeah, the football have give me so much, but also almost killed me, because you know I fell in love with the game. I first and foremost, I didn't play because it was about the money or the fame. I played because I loved the game. I loved playing football. Even when I was a pro my first year, I used to love, playing football. I used to even go on a Sunday to play in the park with some of my mates, and I was a pro, and it was not even on my contract to do it. But I love the game so much. But as I said, yeah, it's the game I've given me so much a great education about life, but also I've almost killed me, because the game I love so much, I was not educated to have them kind of people I was being cross on my path. That was no, it was no, how do you call that? Honest. I'm a very honest person, and I like to surround myself with honest people, but we all know that in football is not a lot of honesty. And yeah, it was hard to digest that, because is something I'm passionate. I love the game, but again, is the game almost killed me. But again, is the game who saved me, and to be here today to talk to you, because at the lowest point, I had to sort of like reset a button in your mind to be where you were at a young age, when you're actually doing your trade to be a professional player. So like, being ruthless, being strong, mentally strong, being almost arrogant in a good way. And the last 2.5 years is what I've been doing. I've looked after myself a lot better. I've exercised, diet, almost to the point where I was actually punishing myself to go in the gym, because it was a way out to deal with. It was I'm here. This was the most important. As I said, in that journey, I've learned so much. I've learned a lot of things.
And I suppose it must have been quite difficult to be released and let go by Norwich, given how much you've put into the game previously. So for you, is that the moment after you left Norwich, you identify that as the moment that it really set home that actually something was wrong?
Yeah, something was not right. Just to the point where you leave your flat to go to training, and it was only 20 minutes. I was living only 20 minutes away from Corney, and it's that journey. You feel that pain in your stomach, that you feel anxious, your head is not right, you feel like that cloud above your head, and you arrive in the car park, and you burst in tears in your car, and you're aware that someone is going to see it. So you put your act together and walked in the changing room as nothing has happened. As again, you put a brave mask in your face, a mask of protection and projection. 5 minutes before you go to training, you're in the bathroom and being sick. 5 minutes before a game, you're in the bathroom being sick. And that was not just obviously the butterfly in your stomach. I was in my mind, I was not right. I was not very well. A lot of things I didn't want to go training. I wanted to be on my own. I wanted to be in bed. I want people to leave me alone. And when you're in the public eye, you can't do that. You have to do like, you have to go to Chapperfield now and sign some autograph. But at the time it was Castle Mall, or going at the ground, you have to sign some autograph for the fan. And it's not like I didn't want to go. It's not because I didn't want to go because I didn't want to sign autograph for the fans. It's just physically I couldn't. I was scared to go, and I was scared that the fans would find out that something is not right for me and with me. You're in the changing room where we just mentioned earlier. You got so many British players in there. I would call it old-fashioned, who I was scared to go to speak to them, and I couldn't really speak to them because I know the answers. They will have to tell me to. Do you know where I'm coming from? And as a young age, come from a different country, I had no one to talk. I didn't have a manager who I could easily knock on the door and have a chat with him about it. He was not like he is now. People talk a lot more about depressions and their own, their own problems. It was tough, and to be honest, when Norwich released me, it was. I remember I had 1 year left, and it was almost like a bag of sand off my shoulders. It was almost like saying thank you, because I knew I didn't have to pretend. I knew I didn't have to go to the changing room where it's full of egos and low men who we all got our own problems, but when you go in the changing room, no one talk about it about their private life or their problems. And for me it was like thank you. I don't have to be part of it, and from that I completely detached myself away from the football world. I had opportunity to go on trial, which I went on trial, but mentally I was not prepared. And before I went on trial, I knew the answers. So, it was difficult. Again, it was difficult because I knew something was not right, but I couldn't really put my head around what was not right. What was not right is I didn't want to socialize with anybody else. I was petrified that people will find out something is not right with me. It was a difficult time. And I didn't even talk to my ex-wife at the time, or my wife at the time. She didn't know what was going on. She didn't know nothing was going through my head.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we speak about footballers and we speak about football, and it's all about being driven and having goals and being this character that is strong and sturdy. And so I suppose as a footballer, when you fall outside of that category and actually you don't feel as strong and you don't feel as sturdy and you feel insecure in your own life, to go into an environment where, as you say, there are strong characters and there is a culture that actually everyone has to put on a mask and pretend there's something bigger and stronger. For you, that must have been quite tough, because to have your own problems and to go into that environment, you obviously have to, as you say, put on a mask and sort of almost face up to it. That must have been really difficult, and it also must have affected your game as well.
It affected everything. It affected me as a person, it affected my football, it affected my relation, my marriage, it affected everything. When you're depressed, it just don't affect you as a person, it affects everybody around you. It affects your confidence, and you just mentioned, I become insecure about something I was good at it. And if you feel insecure about something you're good at it, where'd you go from there? I was a young lad, I was 21 when I left Norwich, and I didn't know which path to go. I didn't know who to talk to. That these days, the professional footballers, they got a lot of people in the club who work behind doors. You got psychologists, you got a lot of different people who can actually go to speak. And sometimes, you don't need to have a psychology in a squad where you will feel comfortable to talk. Maybe sometimes you will be the chef at the canteen where you feel more comfortable to speak to. But me, at the time, my English was not very good. I was worried that I would say the wrong things, so I kept everything to myself. And when you keep everything to yourself, it becomes a snowball. You get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you can't deal with it. Mm-hmm. And it came to a time I couldn't deal with it, and for me to deal with it was to take my life.
And what was the point whereby you realised that actually that there was no answer, there wasn't a point now where you could deal with it, as you say, that point for you, whereabouts did it arrive? Because it must have been, as I say, a really difficult and dark period in your life.
But the point was I had no hope of life. Mm-hmm. It was simple.
And did that stem from when you left Norwich?
Yeah, I had no soul. My soul was gone. The Cedric who was loving the game and being happy and smiley, and I had everything to be happy. I become a football professional, which was my dream. I was earning a lot of money, and at that stage it's not all about that. I didn't want to live in this world. I didn't feel comfortable to speak to anyone. I had no one to talk to. You retract in yourself. You stay at home. Your house become your protection. Your wall don't judge you. and it was easy for me to stay home. And that's obviously the typical symptoms of being depressed, is you detach yourself away from the world, basically. And this is what happened to me. And I was detaching myself away from my wife, from my kids. You know, I couldn't take my kids to their birthday. I couldn't go on holiday with my family. Couldn't take my kids to school, to the play park. Couldn't even speak to my ex-wife, or my wife, sorry, because he was feeling ashamed. I was ashamed. I was ashamed. I thought like I was the only one in the world feeling that way, and I was thinking, well, why do you think that way? You got everything for you.
Is it more difficult in a sense because people obviously see footballers and they see young men earning lots of money, fulfilling their dream, as you say, and so the expectation is they have to be happy and you have to play a role of Cedric the footballer.
Yeah.
And for you to play that role must have been very difficult in what was
it was an act.
Yeah.
It was an act. You start to learn the trade as an actor, basically. Is that way. You know, when you watch a movie, you look the actor, but you don't know his name. You know, you don't know his real name. You just know his name in the movie. And I was like that. I was playing an act. I was playing an act to everybody. I was playing an act to my wife. I was playing an act to everybody around me, pretending I was happy, but I was not. You know, and you know, as I said, when you do the first time you're trying to take your life in 2012, I think it was. I was starting to open up a little bit afterwards with my ex-wife, but I didn't want to say too much because I was petrified she's going to leave.
And that's the culture of society, isn't it, I suppose, because society builds up this image of men and what they are and what they need to be. And so there is this fear of talking to people about feelings, and is that something that you were conscious of, the fact that perhaps your masculinity would have been questioned had you spoke out, particularly in what was a very intense football environment at the time?
I felt like there was no point to talk because I don't feel like anyone will understand. I felt like no one will understand around me, understand my thoughts, what was going through my head, my as I said, no hope of life. Your soul is gone. You got nothing to live for. And again, I had something to live for, but in my mind, I had nothing because I was depressed. I was at the lowest points, and it was hard. It was hard, and again now, you know, I'm a lot better, and I'm quite happy to open talk now, and everyone knows I talk a lot about mental health and my experience with it. But it's just recently that you reflect on your life. You reflect on what happened, the stage of your life, why that happened, you know. You reflect in yourself. When you are depressed, the world surrounds yourself. Everything is about you. You feel angry about everything, for nothing, for no reason. You know, you just want to be on your own. But loneliness is a dangerous place. And I never felt like I could talk to anyone because I felt like people would judge me, but judge me in the wrong way. But yeah, and then obviously I tried to commit again in 2016 because my ex-wife left me, you know, and I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all. I forgive her, and again, is a thank you. Because if she had never left me, I would probably never been sitting here and talk.
It's interesting that you speak about those two moments when you were pretty much ready to take your own life as being key moments for you to open up. It's quite sad from my point of view to see the fact that you had to get to those two major points before opening up. But I suppose it's because, as you say, the picture the depression creates is one that of hopelessness and of worthlessness, and that is very hard to overcome, isn't it? For a lot of young men who feel that way, who can't talk.
But sometimes in life you have to break something in your life to be able to move on. And them 2 stages of my life, obviously I didn't do it, but I was close, especially on the second one. And that made me realize that actually I needed some help. And from that point, had the help required, had a lot of professional, positive people around me. You change your life. You change everything around you. And this is what I've done, you know. But I'm coming to the stage now, I'm starting to think about my marriage, how my ex-wife, I've endured what she endured with me, because it was not easy to live with me. It's not easy to live with a depressed person. It's not easy, you know, it's difficult. And she said to me, when I was talking about her, when I was not in a good place, when I was not right, when I was feeling a bit down, who was there to help me? And it's true. I never see it that way, because everything was about me. You know, she knew the real Cedric, because she lived with me for so long. She lived with my depression. She knew how I was. She knew how I was before I met her to now these days, and she would be the first person to tell you I'm a different person. I'm a completely different person. She don't recognize me, and she said, you're the person I fell in love right at the beginning.
And we speak obviously about those 2 times where you were, as you say, very close to ending it all. What was the trigger for you, I suppose, to actually say, no, I'm not going to do that, and actually I'm going to try and, as you say, particularly in 2016, this is a point where now I need to get help and I need to try and rebuild it.
At that time I didn't really thought about rebuilding my life, because it was just a progression on little step. It's brick by brick. You know, you build a house one brick by one brick. You know, you base a good foundation for you to able to put the walls and have a good foundation house. So when there's a storm, your house don't blow away. And that's what I needed to do. I spoke to, obviously, Clark Carlisle. He put me in a good path. Went through I referred myself to Housing Hospital. I was looked after very well by different professionals. And again, it's them foundation. It's them foundation, and then suddenly you start to eat a little bit better. You look after a little bit better, because before that I was drinking alcohol at 8 o'clock in the morning.
We drinking because it was an escape and it was a way out.
It was an escape. It was an escape. It was you know, you take medication for a headache and your headache go. For me, it's like the same with alcohol. I was drinking because the pain was going, but again, 2 or 3 or 4 hours later, it was back, and then you drink again. And you know, I never touched drugs, but alcohol was my thing. Get up in the morning drinking, you know, and you go to bed in the evening and hoping you're not going to wake up in the morning.
You said a few times you've been reflecting recently about your life and your career, and it's interesting that you say now you can look back and spot symptoms that perhaps at the time you wouldn't have seen. So what were, sitting in your position now, where you look back and go, actually this was a symptom here that I displayed at this moment, and at this moment, what are those different moments that you pick out?
Obviously the 5 minutes before training, when I used to lock myself in a bathroom, being petrified to go outside and train, because I was worried that I would do something wrong, a bad pass or a bad control, or give the ball away. I was petrified of that. So that for me was the first things. Secondly, it was later on where I lost my temper with my son, and that is not me. Everybody knew how much I love my kids, and as I said, that for me was it was hard. I thought something it need to be done. Something need to be done, because it can go completely wrong. even to these days, when I talk to my ex-wife, she explained to me what I've done. I've got blank. I can't remember. And it's difficult. It's hard.
For you, there must be a degree
but again, you know, now to these days, I love my kids to bits, and I want to see them growing, and you know, is what a father need to be. And for too long, I was no father. Too long, I was no father, and I've got a second chance to be a father, to be able to take them to a play park, take them to a birthday, take them to Carroll Road. You know, I would have never ever thought about doing something like that. Is again to become a father, to be there for my kids, and everything I do in my life, I do for them. You know, I try to give them an education for them to understand they will face challenge in their life. They will. But it's how you going to go into it. You know, it's always a positive in a negative. It's always a way to go to the other side of the obstacle, but you need to find the way. And everything I do in terms of the mental health, everything I do, the way I conduct myself with people and everything, that is an education that I'm giving for my kids, but also to the people around me. You know, you have to be in that frame of mind to be able to help other people. You know, you don't need to be rich. You don't need to drive a nice car. You don't need to be a footballer professional and earn millions, because people judge you for who you are, what you go inside. And then that is my aim. It's an education you give it. Being polite, have 5 minutes for someone, have a smile for somebody, open the door for somebody. Is little things in life, is simple things in life that we take for granted. And to this modern life, we are not honoring a relation. We are not honoring a marriage. You know, we're not honoring anything. We take everything for granted.
It's really interesting hearing you speak so openly, so candidly about it. When as you say, it was 3 years ago, 2016, where obviously that trigger point would have been for you to get from there to get to now. That must have been quite a long process, but I would imagine one that you're so proud of yourself.
It's only 3 years, and he's still very fresh. Not even 3 years yet. You know, it'll be 3 years in October, November. So he's still very fresh. But again, I've reset my mind how I was when I was at Bordeaux Academy, when I was a professional, where I wanted to be. Have a goals, have your standard very high, but have very good values of life. That is my principle of life, you know, and is where I am today.
And as you say, transitioning some of that footballer mentality into your life every day, that seems to be working for you, and you now seem to be in a much better place, which is fantastic for everyone.
For me, is the key. You know, as I said, everything I do is for my kids, but everything I do also is for people to realize that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to talk. It's fine to talk. It's the best things. You know, we are born with a mouth to talk. We are born with ears to listen. We're born with 2 eyes to observe, but we don't use them on a daily basis.
And I suppose for you, in the position you're in now, you probably look at yourself as a young footballer and a young player, and almost it must be quite frustrating that you didn't talk, knowing the position you're in now and knowing that how rewarding just having a conversation can be.
That is my biggest regret. I should have done that a long time ago. When I had the support of my wife at the time, I should have been able to talk to her. But again, men's got pride. We think we're Superman. We think we're unbreakable. No, we're not. It can happen to anyone at any time, unfortunately. But you know, that's my biggest regret, to have been able to talk to my wife at the time, and nothing will have happened.
How do you reflect on the period that you've gone, where, as you say, you did isolate yourself and you did separate yourself from, as you say, your wife, your teammates, your football, even your kids to some extent? Is that something you look back on with anger, with guilt, or are you just grateful for the fact that you've got a second opportunity to put them things right?
At the start, I was bitter about everything. I was bitter about the world. I was thinking, why me? Why? Why happened to me? Why everything? My dream as a footballer. Why my marriage? Why my relation with my parents? Why they all breakdown. Why me? What all happened to me? You know, when you're a footballer at such a young age, I never thought I would stop my football career 10 years later. But again, in them 10 years, I have achieved playing quarter-final of UEFA Cup final, play a final UEFA Cup, won the French League, been a French international. I have achieved that in such a short time, 10 years. And I say thank you for that. Obviously, the rest, I say thank you for everything that happened to me, because it made me the person I am today.
It's interesting you say that, because I was going to say that the fact that the experiences you had in football, as you say, leaving Norwich, seemed to be the trigger point really when you recognised that something wasn't right, and because of that experience is now the reason you're sat here and you're telling the stories that you are.
Yeah.
Because you recognised that was the moment where something wasn't right, and actually you did need help and you did need to talk about it. So those experiences in football have sort of shaped where you are now and who you are sitting in front of me today.
Yeah, it shaped the way I am today, the way I think about life, and the way I'm conducting myself to everybody. You know, I embrace the opportunity, or the second opportunity I've got in life, and see my kids growing, and that you can't take nothing away from that. You know, you can have a fantastic job, you can, you know, but a smile to put a smile on your kid's life face is incredible, and that give me that drive every day to see them. And you know, I miss so much in as a father, and I'm trying to play catch up now. You know, when I went to the hospital, I couldn't really see my kids. I didn't see my kids for a long time. I was on very strong medication. I couldn't have them no more than 2 or 3 hours a day. And I have to rebuild my relation, father and son, with my kids. So I've embraced all of that. And as I said again, it's a thank you, because I've learned so much. I've learned so much about me. And I reflect on myself every single day and trying to get better the next day. And again, I always said, and I said again, and in life is, if you want to grow as a person, you have to challenge your limit and not limit your challenge. And that is the way you grow.
How do you view mental health in football in 2019? Then obviously we've got, I think Marvin Sordell was quite recent in his work in coming out and saying that actually he did have issues and he did need help. How do you view that environment now? Is it still somewhere where you feel if you were playing now you could go in and have a conversation, or is it still something that you think needs to develop?
I think it's still a very fragile subject, and I think it will take a lot more, and it needs to be done a lot more, not just in terms of the sport, but in life in general, for people to feel comfortable to be able to talk, and talk to the right person, because if you talk to the wrong person, it can go terribly wrong. But in a sport environment, I think you will see a lot more players will come out, but you will see lot more players will talk about their own issue with mental health, or they have come across with mental health, not when they are playing, but when they will stop, when they will do an autobiography, or when they will do an interview or something like that. Everybody will talk after their football career, and I think the key is actually to change that and make the players comfortable now to be able to talk about it. You know, we had Danny Rose, we had Michael Carrick, we had Johnny Wilkinson. They're all coming out and talk about it. But the only one who come out recently who's still playing is Danny Rose, I would say. Maybe I'm wrong, but all the others talk about mental health, or been through mental health, they will stop playing.
Do you think it's because it's seen as a weakness, and in a competitive environment,
yeah,
you've got to be as strong as possible?
It's a macho environment. You don't want to go in the changing room and feel like you're the weakest link in there. When the club is paying you £40 million, your contract, to come to the club, give you a massive wage. You know, it's difficult. Players under pressure, but again, to help the players is to help them to be able to talk.
And that must be something for your young footballers that you develop daily. That must be something that you're encouraging as well. That actually to not be okay is okay, and to talk is fine, and it is healthy and it is necessary, particularly for young men who I think it's the biggest killer of young men is suicide. So it is an issue still that needs so much work on.
The thing is what we need to do is to educate young men. Go to school. Go to speak to them. Because I think it's 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6 young men under the age of 15 will suffer with depression in their life. Is a fact. You know, and it's to educate them young boys. It's to educate everybody. You know, it's an education to be able to talk to. But I can understand what people don't want to get involved or don't understand or don't know what to do. You know, I'm the same with politics. I don't get the politics. I don't want to get involved with the politics because I don't understand it. And people who don't understand mental health, I've got nothing against them because they have never come across with it. You know, you only come across with mental health if you yourself have suffered or someone, a member of your family have suffered with mental health. Then you start to show an interest. But people who have never come across, it's hard for them to understand.
It's about normalising it, isn't it? Because it's
about giving an education.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
at a young age.
It's the same with, let's say, gay players in football, for example. Why that's still seen as such a taboo in football and such an issue is because of that lack of education, and because the image of a footballer is someone who's strong and unbreakable and sturdy, and they have to be happy because of all the money and the fact that they're fulfilling their dreams, when actually, you know, as you said, everyone has issues inside of that, and it is about educating people that actually this is an illness and not something that is a choice. Because as soon as you do that, you'll get more people who speak out about it and be as frank about it as you have, and that can only help other people.
Everybody got problems in their own life. The thing is how you deal with it. Is how you deal with your issues. Unfortunately, it's too many people who run to the obstacle and run away. They don't try to find a way to go the other side. And is by talking, you will educate yourself to find ways to get better and deal with the trouble or the issue you got. But again, it's to surround yourself with good people, positive people with good energy, then they will help you. Because when you're going to be in a dark place, then people will help you to get out of it. Not them people who just run around and they want you because it's who you are, whatever. Them one will sink you.
And you said earlier that it was football that was a key part of saving you in those dark days. That love for football and reuniting that through your coaching must have been a big part to getting where you are today. Yeah,
that is. I'm passionate about the game, and I love the game. I you know, people talk about, you're a manager now. Are you training tonight? Are you training tonight? For me, it's not training. For me, it's an education. You educate your players how you want them to train. You don't train them. You educate them. You develop them the way you want them to train. And if you got that, it's the same in the game. You educate your players the way you want to play. You develop your players the way you want to play. And that is my philosophy. And, you know, the most important things in life is about communications. If you don't have communication, it's difficult for you to put your principle, your values, your ideas on the table to anyone. It's the same if you're in a relation or your marriage. If you don't communicate with your wife or your girlfriend, it's no relation. And this is what happened with me and my ex-wife. We didn't communicate. I didn't communicate towards the end.
It's interesting, really interesting to hear you speak about that issue so honestly, given obviously the position you were in, to now sit in front of me and say what you said, I think is just remarkable. Shows how far you've come in such a, as you say, still a short period of time.
Yeah. There's a lot more will come from me.
Absolutely, definitely. I look forward to seeing it as well.
Thank you.
But obviously a big part of that as well, you've taken your first step into management with Norwich United. Is that something you're enjoying? Because I know it was an ambition of yours for a little while.
It's been an ambition for a long time, obviously, from a point of view of an ex-player. You want to test yourself as a manager, because I've been a first-team coach, I've been a first-team assistant manager, I've been a manager of a reserve team. But when you're actually a manager of the first team, your responsibility is totally different. You got a lot more pressure on your shoulder, you know. But I've embraced that. You know, I've got a very good young squad who are very together. And again, is me to educate them that you can have a bad game, but never quit. Everyone can have a bad day, but don't quit. And it's the same reflection that I'm trying to get from my life to my team.
And how you find it? We having a conversation off camera before, saying you got 5 unbeaten at the moment.
I think the last 7 games we won the last 5, and drew 1 and lost 1.
So a little bit of a similar run to Norwich at the moment.
The pressure is not the same. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because again, is my mind get active, and it's something completely different outside what I do all week. Even to the point it would sound probably silly is when we don't play at home and we have to play away. For me, going away on a Saturday is actually nice to see a different scenery, because you refresh your mind. You don't have to stay in Norfolk, you don't have to see the same things and do the same things. You know, it's quite nice to actually go away on a Saturday sometimes. But yeah, no, I'm very privileged to have that job. Again, you know, life is about opportunity, and is how you take that opportunity.
It's interesting to hear you speak over sort of the last hour and a bit that we've been chatting. You've spoken a lot about opportunity and taking chances, and that seems to be for you very important. The fact that when you are given opportunities and chances, that actually you take them despite what adversities might be in the way, and then you overcome those. And every challenge for you, it seems, is one to learn from and one to experience from, and that is why, as you say, you where you are today and why you're sitting in front of me today, the person you are, because those are challenges that other people might have looked at and rejected, but instead you've embraced to try and shape you as a person.
But as I said many times, life is full of obstacles. You know, you got doors get knocked and you go they'll get open, but you have to find the strength to keep going and keep going and keep going. And you know, I fight the biggest fight in my life. You know, and I'm not saying I won it, because I have to fight against myself. There's only one winner. But you know, I'm still alive, and every day of life, every day I get up, every day I embrace what I'm doing. I'm privileged to what I've got. You know, I don't have a lot, but what I've got is so, as I said, I'm so privileged to what I've got, and I embrace that, and I'm very lucky to have what I've got. Not a lot, but again, life is about simplicity.
And I can't have you sit in front of me now and without talking about Norwich City at the moment. Obviously, we sit here before the Reading game, so we don't know how that's gone. But 6 games to go, it's looking good, isn't it, at the moment for promotion?
I think Norwich will do it. I think they've been so consistent all year. You know, the championship, you got teams who hit the ground very, very quickly at the early in the season. Then they had a blip halfway, and then they finish stronger, and you got other teams do different ways. Norwich didn't start the campaign very well, let's be honest. But I think for me the key point, you know, I love Jordan Rhodes, but I think for me the key point is for Neil Farker, and again is the intelligence who see that quickly. He has moved position from Pukki up front. He scored 25 goals, and that for me has been the key point of the season, to move that position from Pukki, and look where Norwich are is incredible. And Norwich will do it. They're so high in confidence. I was a bit worried at some stage, because I felt Norwich was conceding far too many goals. But again, it's about you scoring more than the oppositions. But you know, you're always worried about goal difference if you finished in right to the end. But based on the last 2 games, you know, score 5 goals, concede 0. You know, especially away at Middlesbrough, it was quite tough. But yeah, no, I'm very pleased that the club is doing very well. The fan deserve it. It's been far too much up and down for the last, you know, couple of years behind doors, and a new chief, you know, a new director of sports, and do we need a new director of sports or not? And it proved that to be where Norwich are. You know, Stuart Webber has done a good job. Daniel Farke has done a good job. Everybody involved has done a good job. The fans have done their part as well this year, which has been incredible. And the atmosphere at Carrow Road is, I've never seen that before.
As champions, up as champions, do you think?
I think we got a cushion of 7 points. I think they will do it. I think they will be champion. Yeah.
Lovely, Cedric. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.